Good evening. Right now, Metro Police are desperately searching for the person or people responsible for killing a man and a woman.
And I got a male down in Village Street.
Breaking news now, a triple shooting leaves 2 dead.
Never expect for somebody to tell you your loved one was murdered.
This Labor Day will mark 42 years that have haunted the St. Cloud family.
30 years. 30 years this family has waited for answers.
A couple months go by, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you really start to struggle with the idea that the case might not get solved and that somebody might get away with murder.
It's very unfortunate that we have any cold cases at all, and certainly unfortunate that we have as many as we do. And that's why Ryan's work and the work of Project Cold Case is so important.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. It's June 25th, 2019. We've had a really good response with these Facebook Lives when we're talking to survivors and families that have been impacted by unsolved homicides. That's what we do here at Project Cold Case. That's our mission, is to help families of unsolved murders. And so joining me today is another survivor family. This is Sissy Bennett. Sissy, thank you for coming today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Sissy's sister Missy was murdered in 1987. December 28th. So this year will be 32 years since that murder. No arrest has ever been made. It remains an unsolved cold case here in Jacksonville, Florida. And we're going to talk a little bit today about that case, and then we're also going to bring in Missy's daughter Casey in a little bit later and talk to her about what it was like to grow up without a mom. What it's like now to be an adult with children of her own, and trying to make an impact in the world and make the world a better place in the way that she has decided to do that. Sissy, we're going to watch the segment to give kind of our viewers an idea of your sister and the story and what happened, but give us a little bit of background on before the murder. Your family, your sister was 20 years old when she was killed.
Yes, sir.
Close family, tight-knit family.
Very close. We all did everything together. She and I were inseparable. I was a little younger than her. It took a little bit of time, but once I hit my teenage years, got a little older, that brought our friendship and bonding together closer, especially when the baby came along. I spent every minute I could with her, and then to not have it was really tough, really. Yeah. To be so young. And
let's to kind of set that stage, you guys, how many siblings are there? How many?
My mom had 5 girls. And then my parents also did a foster care, and at one time there was 14 of us at one time.
Whoa.
Yeah.
A big family. Let's watch the news clip. Katie Jeffries from First Coast News did one of her unsolved segments on Missy. And again, this was Missy Taylor was her maiden name, and that's what she was for the bulk of her life. She had a short marriage, so we have her listed as Missy Ellison. But
yes,
but Taylor was the name that most people that would remember, think about back then. That's the name that would ring a bell to them.
Yes, sir.
And so Katie Jeffries was nice, and she does an unsolved segment. She calls us constantly. She's always looking for cases to do. And we sat down and selected this case as one of them, and so we'll show that now, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about since the murder.
Okay.
The grief of losing a loved one so violently is something that continually ripples through the lives of family.
I know it's been 31 years, but at the same time, sometimes it feels like 31 minutes ago.
Melissa Ellison, called Missy by her family, was just 20 years old, a bubbly and happy young mother that loved music, especially by her favorite artist, Prince. Her sisters Sissy Bennett and Glenda Blanford say Missy saw the good in people. They remember how she worked so hard on her daughter Casey's first birthday.
It's tough looking back on all those memories
Little did we know that'd be the only birthday party she had.
Yeah.
It was December 28, 1987. Missy was living in a mobile home off Colgene Road in Taylor's Trailer Park, which was owned by her parents. She had recently separated from her husband and had invited a friend and the friend's boyfriend to move in with her to help with the bills. Around 11:30 p.m., Missy spoke to her mother on the phone. According to old newspaper reports about the murder, Missy told her mother she was scared, but wouldn't say why. By 4 a.m., she was found dead. She was beaten to death with a charred log taken from the fireplace, which was then left by the front door. Detective Glenn Warkentine with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit is investigating this case. He says Missy's roommate told officers she woke up because she heard Missy's baby, Casey, crying.
She gets up out of her room, goes in and finds a baby on the couch in the living room. So takes care of the baby, feeds the baby, and she ends up falling asleep on the couch. Then woke up to some noise like a slamming of a door or something like that. She goes back, and that's when she finds Miss Ellison in the bedroom.
Why was little Casey on the couch? And whose vehicle had left tire tracks outside the home? There were so many questions investigators worked to find answers to. There is another strange thing, though, that stands out to Missy's family. They say when they were asked to look at the scene to see if anything was out of place, they noticed 2 pictures from her mantle were missing. Both were pictures of Missy at the beach. This is a duplicate of one of them. Detective Warkentine says it's unclear what happened to the pictures, if they were taken by her killer or if they were taken by an investigator back in 1987. Maybe the biggest clue of all, though, a 911 call. Newspaper reports say a man called and referred to Missy's murder and said, quote, "I'm sorry, I had to do it."
To know that somebody just deliberately planned to go in her home in the middle of the night and do what they did to her is the hardest thing to ever understand.
And it left 13-month-old Casey to grow up without a mother. 32 years old now and a mother herself, Casey says it's hard to hear about her mother because she never got the chance to really know Missy.
Because her place wasn't to be taken. Like, she wasn't meant to leave that early, because obviously she was meant to make an impact on this world, and that's why I'm making an impact in her place.
So she's trying to represent her mother's memory as best she can.
You didn't kill her. She's not dead. Her essence is still very much alive, and it's, it wasn't meant to go as early as it did, especially the way that it was taken.
For her, justice can never be served. But she wants closure. She wants to know who killed her mother and why. Detective Warkentine says no one has ever been arrested for Missy's murder. But his gut feeling is that this was not a random attack. He thinks it was someone that knew her, which means there is likely someone that knows more than what they told police 31 years ago.
There's got to be someone out there that probably saw something, heard something, or throughout the years. Like I said, this happened back in '87. Throughout the years, someone might have said something to them that, they heard or something. That call us and let us know so we can follow up on that.
That's all Missy's sisters and Casey want. No matter how small the piece of information may seem, they want someone to come forward to police.
It could be the missing puzzle piece that we need to break this case and to make sure that she rests in peace. We just want the peace and the closure for our family. She deserves it, and she just deserves to rest in peace.
If you know anything about the death of Melissa Ellison, please contact the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office or Crime Stoppers. Katie Jeffries with photographer Jeff Renfro for First Coast News, on your side.
All right, so thanks for watching that that segment that aired on First Coast News here in Jacksonville. What was that, about a month ago, 2 months ago?
Back in February.
February. Okay. So that's one of the things that we do with the families is we kind of have an ongoing list of cases that we feel like we could raise a little more awareness and bring attention to. Missy was killed in 1987. That was before the internet. That was before cold cases were a kind of a pop culture phenomenon, and people had an interest in them. And I feel like right now we're at this time in our lives where cold cases are interesting to people that haven't actually gone through them. They want to watch the TV shows. They want to, play detective at home, and so we have to kind of grasp that while it's popular, and make sure that people know that these cases are actually real, that there's families connected to them, that there's been devastation left behind from these murders, and so we take that opportunity with the local media and ask them to do as many of these cases as they're willing to help raise more awareness for each one of them. I was talking to you earlier, Sissy. I told you that when we first started working with your family, I reached out to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to try to get as much information as I could, and this was the official statement from them at the very beginning. In the early morning hours of Monday, December 28th, 1987, the victim, Melissa Ann Ellison, Missy, white female, age 20, was found deceased by a roommate. The victim's 13-month-old baby girl was found in the trailer unharmed. The incident took place at 3611 Cold Jean Road, Lot 49, Taylor's Trailer Park, which was located off Normandy Boulevard on the west side of Jacksonville, Florida. Numerous individuals were interviewed at the time of the incident, providing leads that were followed up by the detectives. The case was eventually suspended pending any further leads being developed. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit is asking if any individual who may have information that may help lead to the identity of a potential suspect or suspects to contact either Crime Stoppers or the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. That was, I mean, if you can take the facts of a case and crunch them into the smallest little paragraph possible with, no real emotion or no real connection to anything, that's it. That's the, the very basics of the case. We obviously got to see some more detail and some more information in the segment that Katie did. We got to see you and your sister and Casey's going to join us here in a few minutes. But let's talk about the emotional side of it and the reality of it. Do you remember that day? Do you remember finding out that your sister had been murdered?
Very clearly.
What were you doing? What was your reaction? What was your response?
I actually woke up with a bad feeling that morning and heard my parents scrambling around. Got up to see what was going on. I also had all those children.
Yeah.
We had a handicapped sister, and not knowing what was going on, the emotion. I get up and find my mom. Their bathroom and bedroom was right beside mine. And I could see that she was upset and kind of panicky, and I was like, what's going on? She tells me that they got a phone call from the roommate that someone had broken in. Missy was not responding, and just told me to wait there, Didn't want to give me a whole lot of information, and Missy and I were, again, like I said, best friends. I mean, we were inseparable. I spent my every day with her.
Yeah.
And I was like, you got to tell me more, tell me what's going on. And she told me that she was hurt, that just to, wait there, they would go down and check on her. And I remember sitting there. Well, first I went and told my other sister. I woke her up and said, look, something's going on. And she jumps up and leaves me and goes down there. I can't leave. We got my baby sister, and I'm sitting there waiting. And I knew, it had been a while. Maybe our closeness, maybe the fear of waking up, thinking something, I knew something was wrong. Finally, my parents come back in and broke the news to me. And at first it was kind of shock. Yeah. Like, I didn't want to believe it. I was young, very, really young to go through something like that. And it just, within, the next couple of days, you realize that it is real. Yeah. It has happened, and no answers.
Yeah, as you're, you wait, you think you'll get a call the next day, you think you get a call the next day, then you kind of like, okay, well, maybe next week we'll get a call, and then it kind of, maybe next month you get a call, And then there does come a time where you realize, like, I don't know if or when I'm going to get this call, from police that somebody's been caught.
And that's how it kind of was. I mean, my parents always kept us informed. They always included us, telling us when they went downtown and, or spoke to the detectives. And, of course, I wound up married young and a family of my own, and I kind of just honestly let it, in my mind, I thought they would be working on it. I thought that's how that worked, that it's there, they're working on it, why don't we have answers? Yeah. And then I met my friend Greg a few years back, well, been quite a few years back now, and I've just always spoke with him. He was part of law enforcement, and anyone that I met or knew like that, I would always give them her story, hey, how's this work? And
Greg kind of pushed you. He actually submitted Missy's case to us.
Yeah, he was telling me about
He'd been telling you about it for a while, and let's talk about I've told the story before where with my dad's murder, just about the time I was trying to cope with the idea that they weren't going to catch the guy, or they might not catch the guy, they came and told me that they were going to stop looking because they had run out of all the leads, they had run out of all the tips. There was literally no evidence, left to test. There was no witness left to interview, and that, finding out that there was nowhere else to look was devastating to me, because you don't think about that. You always think that case file is in front of somebody's desk and they always have something to work on, but that's not true.
Right.
There comes a point in an investigation where they have exhausted all those leads and tested all the evidence. Now, luckily, technology is advancing at such a rapid pace that now it's important to go back and look at those cases that had reached that point in the past and see, let's bring them up to today's standards and let's retest them with today's technology, retest the evidence. Let's go back and talk to these witnesses who maybe have had a relationship change and maybe they're more willing to speak now. But I can relate to that. You really do think that I'm just going to take a step back. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let law enforcement do what law enforcement does. And you think you're doing the right thing by just waiting it out. We were talking earlier that it's hard to, you have zero control as a family member. You don't have any control over the investigation. You don't have any control over the technology. You don't have any control over what evidence is left behind. You don't have any control over how quickly things happen. You don't have any control over somebody coming forward with information. And it's this helpless feeling when your loved one is the one that was violently murdered and taken from you, and all you can do is sit there and wait for somebody else to do something. And one of the things that, why we wanted to have you guys on today was to kind of talk about, you don't just have to sit there. We don't suggest that you harass law enforcement.
Right, but most people don't realize and understand, just like I didn't. I mean, granted, I know her case is not the only case out there, but with that being said, also, I mean, just like, you're saying your dad. Yeah. All these other families.
Right.
They have to have information to go on. They have to.
Yeah. If
somebody speak up and say, hey.
If there's somebody out there that that maybe only knew, because I know law enforcement suspects that whoever killed Missy probably knew her, had some kind of connection to that house, to her. So if there's somebody out there that maybe was on the outside and maybe heard that person talk later, how would that person still know that case is unsolved?
Right.
Except for the family making sure that people know that case is still unsolved. And that's, as an organization, we put the pictures on our website. We do spotlights. We connect with the local media and try to raise awareness for the cases. But But the real core, the real way to make a difference in your loved one's case is for the family to be the voice, you know, and we're more of like a roadmap to help with avenues that the family can use to help raise that awareness. But we started out, would you say it was in February that case aired?
It aired in February, yes.
So
I think it was February 21st.
It airs on First Coast News in February. We did a spotlight a couple weeks ago on our website. We're sharing it on social media, but you guys are sharing it, and you've had done a call to action with your family and your support networks and asked them to participate and for them to take this on and to just share it.
And it has. I'm very thankful and grateful.
It has reached tens of thousands of people, many of whom already knew because they're your friends and family, but many of them didn't know Missy's story, didn't understand. I mean, unfortunately, life has to go on. You had to continue your life. Yes. Casey has to continue her life. You don't have the option to just stay in that place and wait for a resolution to the case. The world just continues to move. And it's not, always the first conversation you have when you meet somebody. Hi, I'm Sissy Bennett, and my sister was murdered 32 years ago. Or hi, I'm Missy Ellison, my mom was murdered, 30 years ago. That can't be the only thing you focus on in your world, but there has to be a part of it that you're willing to share with others and ask them to share that burden with you. And as a nonprofit, we get asked a lot, well, what can I do to help your organization? What can I do, to support you? And, there's the obvious answers is fundraising and financial donations, but we're in a very unique situation because the biggest thing anybody could ever do for Project Cold Case and for the families we serve wouldn't cost them a dime, and that's just to share these stories.
Get them out there.
And get them out there and make sure that more people see them, because we know there are people out there that have information on these cases. On the vast majority of the cases we share, there's somebody out there that has the information that can solve it.
Right, that saw something, knows something,
Heard
maybe didn't
something,
realize that it's
right.
not been solved. They could have just been talking about it and they don't have a clue that they didn't.
Exactly. And the
Didn't make an arrest.
cheapest, it wouldn't cost them a penny. All they have to do is share it. And so it's funny, I'll do presentations like civic groups or, churches or other organizations or businesses, and there's always one that raises their hand at the very end and says, well, what can we do to help you? And I say, like our Facebook page, like our social media pages, and then share the stories that we post. And then I run back to my phone in my seat and I check and see how many new likes we have. And it's always like 2, you know what I mean? But it's the easiest thing, for somebody to do. And with Missy's case, you have said it, and I'm going to have you switch with Casey in just a minute, that this Missy's case has received more publicity just since February than in decades.
Yes, sir.
And you guys did have some publicity. I mean, back then it wasn't internet all day, every day news, but
like
I've
you
seen
said, it kind of dies off after when they realize they don't have a lead, when they can't go any further.
Yeah, there's nothing they can do.
There's nothing they can do.
And I've seen the newspaper clippings, and Casey brought some today, and you think, wow, look, this case actually got some publicity back when it happened. But guess where those newspaper clippings are now? They're in your house.
Right.
They're not archived online. If you Google Missy Ellison, before February, there was not a lot that came up. So now we have created an archive of Missy Ellison on the internet that if anyone, anywhere, at any time thinks about this case and wants to know more or has information and they Google her name, something's going to come up.
Oh, nice. I didn't realize I did that.
So when we put this stuff on our website, when we do that spotlight, and now when you Google Missy's name, there will be a place to see that case has not been solved. There will be a place to see that Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is the investigating agency, the phone number to call if they have information, the Crime Stoppers line if somebody prefers to remain anonymous and potentially receive a reward. That information is out there, and that is valuable information that up until recently just wasn't on the internet. Everything's on the internet, but what we're finding is that all of these cases that are 2, 3, 4 decades old and older, they don't exist on the internet. And so that's, this challenge to take on to make sure that these families know that someone else cares, that someone understands that they're still grieving their loved one and missing their loved one. And
it never goes away.
It doesn't ever go away. We talk to people all the time that say,
And honestly, I have to say, I've lost other siblings and my mother. And with time, I've learned to realize that dying is part of living. I understand that. Or like, for instance, with my mom and my baby sister, it's hard, it's tough, but at the same time, you realize they're not suffering anymore.
Right.
So you kind of have that peace with that. But when your loved one is murdered, the way that she was, and it's never been solved.
Grief is
you don't get over that.
Yeah, grief is a weird thing, but there is, you never like to compare. My situation is worse than yours when you're talking about grief.
Right.
But when you start adding layers of complexity, a traumatic event, a murder, violence, no answers, no idea who did it, no idea why they did it. All of that stuff just complicates the grief.
It does.
It makes it that much.
Because you grieve all the all the time. Don't get me wrong. I can. Christmas time. My baby sister loved Christmas, and it's hard sometimes to see little Christmas shows with the lights and the music, and you think about how she was about it, and you miss all that stuff. And at the same time, I have to honestly say, I look back I cherish the time that we had with her, no doubt. And I know that she's not suffering. I know that she's better off, and other family members, you hurt and you miss them, and there's days you sit down and cry, but the grief is totally different.
Yeah.
To go to bed every night, honestly, there's probably not a night that goes by that I don't think of her. I don't think of Missy and why and
that's
who.
I want to segue with that comment. So we have people that say, my family doesn't ever bring up my loved one. Nobody will ever talk to me about. It's like nobody remembers them. It's like nobody cares. And when we ask the friends and family that don't bring it up, why they're scared to talk about this person that is such a big part of another loved one's life, they say, well, we don't want to upset them. We don't want to make them sad. And, so we try to explain to them that you are not bringing up something that person isn't thinking about every
day.
Single day. Missy is not, there's not a day that goes by that she's not in each one of your minds. And so if I could stress this to people that have not experienced this type of loss, it's that it is okay to say, hey, I was thinking about Missy the other day. Do you remember that time Missy did this, said that? I cherish and love when my dad's friends tell me a story about my dad.
And that's how I am with Missy. A lot of her friends, especially since this all came about, being shared on Project Cold Case and all over Facebook, social media, you instantly start getting her friends responding back, oh my gosh, she was the sweetest girl. And, you run into somebody that knew her, and that it's always a subject.
Yeah.
And, sure, there's times I want to cry,
right,
it hurts, but at the same time, I'm with you. It's a great feeling to know that so many people loved her and, still think of her this many years later. They haven't forgotten her.
Absolutely. And we know that for a fact. And we're going to, so we've talked a little bit about what Project Cold Case tries to do for families and what we've tried to do for you guys. And you guys kind of returned that favor and did something for us. But I want to get Casey over here for a second and talk to her a little bit while we're talking about these feelings and the emotions of losing somebody, and then I'll bring you back over and we'll talk about what you guys were able to do for us.
Okay.
So come on over here and join me, Kate. Yeah, thank you, Casey, for joining us. You've been sitting through here while I've been, your aunt and I have been talking, and you heard the statement that I read that was from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office that said the victim's 13-month-old baby girl was found. That was you.
Yes.
You were in the house, in the home, when your mother was killed. Obviously, at 13 months old, you don't remember that, thankfully, probably, other than being able to identify somebody. You have, at some point in your life, as a child, somebody had to sit you down and tell you what happened and why, your mom wasn't there.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest with you. You're the very first interview I've ever had about this. So thank you, guys.
Well, we got some tissues and take your time. You got your drinks. We got some pictures.
So, anyways, I didn't grasp it until I had my youngest daughter. Her birthday and my birthday are 4 days apart. So my oldest daughter, her birthday was July. So that's a good 6 to 8 month difference. And right. I wasn't quite associating it with anything until I had her. And right after Christmas of that year, it hit me that, wow, we are exactly the same age. Like, I'm walking at this point. I'm crying at this point. Like, I'm associating with, if I make this activity, this is what's going to happen. I can communicate. And that wasn't anything that I understood until that point. And then it kind of hit me that, wait a minute, what was I doing? Like, was I there? Like, then I started to have questions.
Right.
And when those questions started to come, I realized my family dynamic, you have to understand, just like you said, life has to go on. And, the elephant in the room, my parents were married at the time. And then long story short, my life also had to move on. And my father gave me a beautiful life. Yeah. He's a human. He's a great person. And he remarried. And the woman that he remarried, I have a brother, and she taught me a lot of things that I needed to know about survival, So when you say not talk about it, it was perplexing to say this because, as I got older, as I became an adult, she would introduce me as, this is my stepdaughter, because right. We were only 14, 15 years apart. So people didn't think that she, had me in high school or at a young age. She would introduce me as, this is my stepdaughter. Well, of course, unintentionally, that would present questions.
Right.
And people would be like, well, where's your mom? And so what am I going to say? Oh, my mom was murdered when I was like 13 months old, and they actually have no idea who did it. Oh, yeah, my parents are totally married. And, of course, that's a question that I get every time.
Right.
So, no, I made up lies. Like, I would say she got sick or she got into a car accident or something easier because it was more convenient for everyone involved. Nobody is going to question you when you say she was in a car accident. Like, it just kind of stops that conversation. I
can relate in a little bit separate or very different scenario, but it's people ask me what I do for a living. Mm-hmm. And if I say, oh, I run a nonprofit. If I don't want to get into it, I say, I run a nonprofit. And then they go, oh, what nonprofit?
Right.
And I go, Project Cold Case. Oh, cold cases, what is that?
Yeah.
We help families that have lost loved ones to unsolved murders. Oh, wow, that must be interesting. How did you get involved with that? The whole time I was trying to avoid, that my dad was a murder victim, and you try to give them something, And sometimes it's not enough, and then next thing you know, you end up in this world where you have to. And then I don't know about you, but if you did ever get to that point where you said, and maybe this is why you started telling different stories, but and say, have this whole long drawn out conversation about what I do, and then when I finally get to the point where I'd say, well, my dad was murdered, then they go, oh,
yeah,
okay.
Oh yeah.
And that's the end of the conversation.
Oh,
then
yeah.
they've moved on, and so it's like I was trying to avoid that. That was my whole point, not telling you right out of the gate why I was here. But I want to talk to you a little. I want you to show us some pictures. It'll be hard to see on the screen probably, but I want you to go through there and kind of pull out some pictures that maybe you think are meaningful to you, or that you think that you would like to share.
Sure.
And then I want to talk.
This I have framed. I didn't take it out of the frame. This is a old school Polaroid.
Oh wow!
And that was me, and that's her. I've always been told she was super style coordinated.
Let me see
with
if I
her
can get
red
that even
Reebok
close
shoes.
I think they can at least see the red Reebok
The
shoes.
high tops. Yeah. And that was me walking. I'm in a diaper with my awesome little fuzzy afro hair, but I feel like I look like her in that picture.
I feel like you look like her in every picture I've ever seen. I mean, it would be, there would be no question about you and your mother's relationship, which I'm sure is a kind of a double-edged sword sometimes,
Yeah,
but,
it is. Well, this one, I know you guys probably can't see it. We should save this story for my Aunt Sissy when she comes up here. But there's this infamous story of how silly my mom was, that she just walked right backwards into a swimming pool. And this was a picture of her standing in front of the pool.
In front of the pool that she...
Yeah. Well.
There was a bunch of pictures. I mean,
there's so many. I mean, like, put me on the
one of the
spot.
saddest things we do is when somebody reaches out to us with a unsolved case, and Frida's here help us out. I should give Frida a big shout out today.
Yes.
Our advocate Frida is having to man the controls and be our producer, because our normal producer Clint is on his honeymoon today. So we hope Clint and Autumn, we wish them, we congratulate them on their recent marriage. But when Frida has to reach out to these families and say, can you send me a picture? And they go, I don't have one. Or they go, I have a crumpled up newspaper obituary photo, and I can scan it. Or I mean, it's, people take pictures, take lots of pictures, always take pictures, because even if you don't necessarily need them for us, hopefully you never do, to be able to go through these sometimes.
That's all you have.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all you're left with.
And with you, where you don't have these memories with your mom, so you have to look at that picture.
Yeah.
To know that you guys did share the same space, that you were in the same room together.
Yeah.
And during the segment, Sissy your aunts talked about that first birthday party that your mom planned for you, and how important that was for her.
That's funny you say that. This is that picture.
That's
There's that
look
one.
at that. We should scan some of these. We'll try to scan some of these and put them in the comments or something. But you're devouring your cake there.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about you have a nonprofit.
I do.
And
yes.
And just give me a little bit of background on why you have a nonprofit. There's typically a passion behind somebody being willing to start something like that. So give us the information on it, and give us some background on it, and does that tie into
absolutely
your mom's murder?
Of course it does. My whole life involves my mom's murder, only because it's been such a impactful event.
Yeah.
That has shaped a lot of things about who I am as an individual. And I've realized, just like the butterfly effect, the movie The Butterfly Effect, it's like an impact for impact effect. If anything had been differently in my life. If anything in the course of my life would have gone differently, my life wouldn't have been exactly where we are right now.
Sure.
And so I have to go back and just kind of appreciate the fact that my mom, being the human that she was, the human that I'm told, all these, I get told these incredible stories too. I like to, this is just how I like to deal with it, I guess, like, Harry Potter. That's the most compassionate love there is, and his mom gave her life for him, and so in the end, my mom lost her life. I was there. Was I in the room? That's, something that
Only one person knows,
who knows? I believe I probably was, with all of everything that we, so here we are. But at the end of the day, she lost her life, and my life has to be worth hers. So I struggled with depression for a very good chunk of my life. I still struggle with it. They say you'll always struggle with it. Every day is a battle. So with my depression, the first thing that goes is your self-care.
Right.
And Change the Face of Depression is my foundation that I've started. That sole focus is self-care and hygiene and self-love and being able to love yourself, because that was something that was so difficult for me to do, was to be able to look at myself, because I was honestly, these are all emotions that I'm working out, that I'm trying to figure out how to explain, but it was things that I realized that this depression took effect of me, and I was not able to take care of my well-being.
Yeah.
So I used that to show, other people, hey, this is what I've survived. If I've survived this, like, you can do it. Let's go.
Sure. Yeah.
I got exactly impact for impact. This was such a horrible impact that happened to me, to my family. I remember Katie Jeffries, point blank asking me in the spotlight, what does the word justice mean to you? What does the word justice mean to you? And I was like, justice. What is justice? Absolutely, whoever did this to my mother, she deserves to rest in peace. Absolutely, justice, absolutely. But the amount of grief that it's caused my family over the last 30 years of not knowing who did it and ripping my family apart because of all of the questions and the no closure, that's not any justice is going to be able to repair that damage, unfortunately. That's just, here we are.
Right.
And that impact that it's made on my family, that negative impact, I'm trying to turn that around and do an impact for impact and use my story to impact people the best way that I can and help them to love themselves. And, we go to school and we inspire students to be able to talk about their hygiene and be able to show them how to do makeup and show them, take photo shoots. And we involve stylists and grooming people and anti-bullying and do motivational speeches and just, use that impact to inspire people.
That's an amazing thing with the world we live in today, where we're starting to see a change in the approach to mental health.
Yeah.
But we're still so far behind and accepting it, being open about it,
right,
addressing it.
Well, it's still such a taboo, unfortunately. And, it goes again with, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Keep it secret, because nobody needs to know, the dirty laundry of your mental health. But your mental health is just as important as your physical well-being. Your mental health is the brain that constructs all the bodies to do all the things.
Yeah. Without the mental health, there is
no
the physical health is not going to be there. So, so how, you have a Facebook page.
I do.
Change the Face of Depression.
And there's a website, changethefaceofdepression.com. You can sign up institutes. We're actually doing Love Your Selfie with Aveda in Tampa. Aveda has sponsored us as one of our events that we do every year.
And you did this, we did this in the past.
We actually, timing is incredible with the universe, honestly. I mean, we talk about the fun stories that happened with time aligning. But right after I did the Love Your Selfie event was when everything got picked up with ABC, and it just happened and happened and happened. And because of social media and you guys being able to share so much stuff, you know,
you posted on social media, I don't know if it was last night or this morning, and you said, my mom's case has gotten more publicity in the last couple months than my entire life.
My entire lifetime. And going back to, you know, I've had to be quiet about it. I've had to lie about it for so long because it wasn't Googleable.
Right.
I remember I had a meltdown the other night because I Googled and ABC came up, the segment that like
Katie
she was
did,
on.
yeah.
You can Google her name and there she was. And it wasn't like I didn't have to feel ashamed that like nobody believed me that this happened to me, or that, you know, she had been forgotten and she was never going to be, like, it was just a lost light, you know. And so she will never be forgotten.
No, she will never be forgotten. And you don't have to worry about that. And that's, you know, the thing that we want all our families to know is that that your loved ones are not going to be forgotten, and that we will do whatever we can, whenever we can, at any opportunity that comes up. You know, Katie and Project Cold Case have been working together for, I mean, about 2 years now, trying to, but there are so many cases, you know, we can only do so many, but her station really, they seem to get it, and they've bought into her Unsolved series, and so they're continuing them. Action News does them with us as well, and they're continuing to do them. So, you know, now we want to see that spread to other areas, you know, so that other families outside of this viewing area can experience that as well. But, you know, well, thanks for coming and you know, sitting down and telling us, you know, your story and what, you know, what you've been able to do. I mean, to go through that, we hear PTSD thrown around, you know, a lot because we're accepting of it more now. You know, you experienced something traumatic that you can't remember, but that you lived with your entire life. I mean, it's a very, you know, it might be hard for people to grasp that, you know, but that just makes it that much more complicated to live with, you know.
Well, another thing is, you know, like we were going back to the complexity of stuff is even with the impact for impact. So say, just like you're doing it with because of your father, you know, like this is why Project Cold Case, because there's a main story behind it, but also just going back to we have no motive either.
Right.
That's the hard part for the closure is, you know, whoever did it, like nothing was stolen. There was no, you know, like what was the motive, you know, and not like somebody driving down the interstate, you know, that was shot for a gang initiation. Like that's a horrible story, but there's a story. Yeah. Like why?
We're always wanting the who and the why.
Right.
And in these cases, you know, there's not a who.
Right.
And a lot of times, and sometimes there's not a why.
Right.
And that again just adds to that complexity of grieving and dealing with it. So, all right. Well, we're gonna get Sissy back over here because. But thank you, Casey, for sitting down and talking to us. I really appreciate that. So, Sissy, I'm going to let you kind of tell this story, but you had a conviction to do something and to do something for us, which is not something we ask our families to do or require or request or, you know, even expect, you know, from our families. But you wanted to do something as kind of a thank you. So tell our watchers what inspired you and what you did.
I started had the thought to do a fundraiser. I actually wanted to do an event, and with my work schedule, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
And then I just decided I'm going to try this on my own. I'm just going to go out. You know, it started out silently, and then thanks to Dr. Mike, she donated her TV time to us.
Yeah, Sixth Street
Vet
and McClenny, and so we were on River City Live last week with her and Mojo.
And my biggest thing was to help get y'all recognized, because surprisingly, a lot of the people that I went to and mentioned that I was doing this for y'all had no clue who you were.
Yeah.
You know, my close family friends did, you know, but outside of that, a lot of people aren't familiar with who y'all are and what you do, you know, and I stress that, you know, y'all didn't ask me to do this, you know, you don't expect this. I wanted to do it to show a thank you and to help another family.
Yeah, and we appreciate that because we don't focus on the recognition. That's not why we do what we do, is to be recognized in any way. We want these families and their loved ones to get that publicity
right,
and
but
recognition.
if they don't know who you are,
right,
they're not going to know who these people are.
So sometimes we
thing.
forget, you know, that we have to shine that spotlight on the organization sometimes and remind people that we're here and what we do. And, you know, honestly, people that haven't experienced what we have experienced, they don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it.
Right.
You know, so it's a lot easier when, you know, a family member is going out and sharing the stories and saying, well, Project Cold Case is helping us out now. And you went and you basically just started going to the connections that you have established in your lifetime, the friends, the family, the people that knew Missy, the people that knew you and knew the story, and you just asked them to make donations in Missy's name to Project Cold Case to help us out.
And it went surprisingly well. I'm very thankful and grateful for everybody that supported it. It has meant more than they probably will ever know.
Yeah, I hope they know, and I think they'll hopefully they watch this and they get an idea of a tiny little glimpse into what you guys have had to live with for 32 years almost now, and a tiny glimpse into how this organization has been able to support you and at least help raise awareness for Missy's case. And I think seeing you here, seeing Casey here, I think that they will know how much it meant to you and your family.
And how important it is to all these other families to be able to keep y'all going, keep y'all doing what you do, and just a thank you. I mean, y'all spend a lot of time.
Yeah, well, it's an important cause. You know, we would do it no matter what. But we appreciate the fact that you recognize that and that, you know, it was something you felt compelled to do to help us out. We are a nonprofit. We just talked to Casey about nonprofits. You know, she knows the life. It is always a struggle financially, you know, to make ends meet and to make sure that you can, when you're passionate about something, you just want to do more. All right, so this is what we've done for Missy's case, but now all that's been done. So now what can we do? You know, we're always looking for the next thing that we can do, and sometimes we're limited. Sometimes we're limited by funding, and you know, sometimes we're limited by those resources, and we want to be able to help as many people in as many ways as possible. So with your help and your supporters, we're going to be able to do that a little bit more, and we've got a big giant check over there.
And that was my goal. That was my goal, to help other families get the same feeling that my family has gotten, to know that it has been brought back to that whole, you know, more so than it ever has in 30 years, other than amongst us, you know, my family.
Right.
You know, that's one thing I can honestly say. My family we never forgot her.
Of course,
you know, she was always talked about. Even still to this day, most days I can't call a family member that we don't get on the subject.
Yeah.
That Missy's, you know, a story.
Yeah. Well, you guys donated. We had somebody ask about a link to making a donation. You can go to our website, projectcoldcase.org, and there's a donate button at the top. But let's do this presentation and let's send out some thank yous, because yeah, here we go.
A lot of thank yous.
A lot of thank yous. So I don't know if they can see that. That's $3,400 from Sissy and her friends and family, just would you mind donating? And just like that, you were able to raise $3,400 for our organization.
And it's kind of crazy because it started out, so if I do this, would you be interested? And next thing you know, it was just on. It was
Everybody was wanting to know
right.
when to do it and where to do it. Yeah. Well, thank you to your family. I wish that, it's one of those catch-22s. I wish I'd never met you, because that would have meant that Missy never would have been murdered. You know what I mean? But we can't change that. And so, but for the worst things in both of our lives, we're here and we're together and we're friends, and we're able to help other families and raise awareness for Missy's case, and hopefully get a resolution soon. The detective on the case joined us at River City Live last week. He's obviously engaged in this case. I saw earlier that he was watching. I don't know if he's been able to watch the whole time, but he's working on it. He's looking at it. He's hopefully
he's definitely gone above and beyond in my time that throughout this time.
Yeah. I mean, he keeps in touch with you. You have his number. You have access to him. That's huge.
And it means a lot. I
mean, for how many years did you not have access to somebody to just you had Greg, which is a great great friend and an insight into law enforcement, but he wasn't working at the law enforcement agency that was investigating Missy's case.
He's just been able to help me understand how this all works and how important it was for me to put myself out there to say, hey, He started with you guys. He submitted her information, and
who would have thought that you'd have to push you to get to this point? Well, you also had a contact with Rochelle that was working in the cold case office at JSO. She was
yes, in the
working
beginning
there too. In the very beginning. So just
she
like
these
families that have businesses and friends that have supported you. There has been a network of individuals that were willing to help. Greg, Rochelle, now Glenn Workentine at the JSO, Project Cold Case. But it really does go back to the families kind of taking that initial step and doing, making the leap to ask for help, to ask for assistance, and then, accepting what we're able to provide. So
yes, and my statement to all these other families: don't give up. Don't stay quiet. Ask questions, call them, because I honestly, personally thought that I just don't understand why nothing's ever been done. Yeah. But now I get, when I look at all these faces, she's not the only one. Each loved one is not the only one, and they are working effortlessly to get these cases solved.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to speak
if you're
up.
not calling,
Right.
You don't know that they'll ever just, accidentally pick up your loved one's case. Coincidentally pick up your loved one's case. You just, you're leaving it to chance if you're not engaged. And again, I mentioned earlier, it doesn't mean harass. It doesn't mean call, weekly. But, when you're 3 decades removed from your loved one's murder, even an annual call, is something that, is not on the anniversary, on the birthday, on your birthday. Like, I think it's important that families remember, to pick a day and reach out and just kind of make sure that the agency has all your updated contact info in case you've moved or changed phone numbers or somebody's passed away. We didn't really talk about it, but your mother passed away in April. So we finally in February, the end of February, get some publicity and get this ball rolling for Missy's case. And then 2 months later, her mother passes away and never got to see, a resolution. So
that's tough. That's hard. But I made a promise to her. We're going to keep this going.
We will.
It'll get there.
The other thing about, sharing this stuff is those videos, those spotlights, they are now out there, which means they can be shared on social media anytime. It doesn't just have to be this week because we're talking about it. You know, it can be 3 months from now for no reason.
And I think we all kind of have done that.
Yeah.
You know, either Casey, myself, my other sister.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, 2 sisters, both of them share it kind of out of nowhere.
Just
I'm like,
randomly.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'll share it again too.
That reach, I tell people, we don't need to reach 1 million people. We need to reach 1, but we may have to go through 1 million to get to that one.
Get that one.
So,
somebody's got to have answers.
That's right.
You know, even if you think it's nothing, you never know. Don't ever be afraid to call. I mean, not just on my sister's case, but anybody's case.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, Sissy, thank you so much for joining us today and for spearheading this fundraiser to help other families at Project Cold Case and sharing your story. And Casey, thank you too for sharing your story. You know, the common theme here is you don't give up hope. You know, there are other avenues. Don't accept no while we're doing this. This is a long journey, and you have to be patient. You have to accept that we're not in control of a lot of what's going on with these investigations, but it doesn't mean that we don't have to that we're not involved. We can be involved. So
it took me some time to
well, look at you now. Look at you now. Well, again, for those that maybe just kind of joined us or tuned in, we talked a lot about Missy Ellison, who was murdered December 28th, 1987, on the west side of town in Jacksonville, Florida, killed in her own home while her 13-month-old daughter at the time was in that home with her. The case is unsolved. The case is being looked at by the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office now, and they need the public's help. They need people to come forward with information, anything that you may remember from back then. I know we've already had somebody comment in the thread and say that they lived down the street at the time. Any information that someone might have that they may have seen, heard that night, weeks later, months later, if somebody was talking about this murder, the sheriff's office needs that information. They need your help. So you can call them at 904-630-0500. You can also call Crime Stoppers and remain anonymous and potentially be eligible for a $3,000 reward. Their number is 866-845-TIPS. Please, if you have information on this case or any case, come forward, help these families out, help all of our families out, and a huge thank you to the businesses and individuals, friends and family that donated to Project. With information. So with that being said, I just have a couple reminders. Our scholarship that we're offering up this year, the deadline to apply for that is Monday. projectcoldcase.org/scholarship is where you can get more information on that. And Thursday evening here in our office, we will be hosting our monthly support meeting, 6 to 8 o'clock. There's no rigid time frame. Come when you get here, leave if you need to. We'll provide some refreshments, and you can talk as much or as little as you'd like to participate. But there will be a number of families that have all lost loved ones, and it's amazing the comfort that you can find in each other with that. So with that being said, we're going to show our remembrances this week. These images that you're about to see are the victims that were murdered at some year during this week between today and next Monday. And if you have any information on those cases, we hope that you will reach out to that law enforcement agency as well. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.